Sorry, guys. I had two tabs open and it killed the one that I was on. I had to go find it in all of my tabs and other windows. So that took a second. But all right, welcome everybody to GTM Hot Takes. This is our second episode. First one, we had pretty amazing discussion around the state of outbound. This is brought to you by Seamless.ai. Seamless provides data on companies and target accounts. And so excited to have everybody here again. This time we're doing one that's obviously very near and dear to my heart as a COO. And that's, should RevOps report into the CEO? There's a lot of debate around this right now. This was obviously a huge topic coming out of COVID when, outbound, a lot of sales models sort of collapsed. And you've got to then get a lot more efficient with this. And so should have great discussion here around this. And let's get into the first one. Are you going to put that up? All right. Well, we wait on Prague. Yeah, I'll just jump into it.
I am ready. I am ready.
What's that?
I am right here and I am sharing my screen so that you guys can have the first. Okay, why not pull up my screen? Maybe we can take a quick round and introduce ourselves, all the speakers, all the experts. Molly, why don't you go first?
Perfect. Molly Bodensteiner, VP of Operations at Sound, and really excited about this topic today because I think I've got a hot take that's going to be different than some of the others.
I'm sure you do.
Over to you, Mallory.
Yeah. All right, let's go with Adam. Adam, you're muted.
Yes, Adam is muted and we can't hear him. I love it. We still can't hear him. This is amazing.
Dale, we'll switch to you until Adam gets his act together.
Awesome. Dale Zawinski, co-founder of Revenue Reimagined, and I try to help Adam with some of his tech problems, but I don't know what's going on with him. So.
That's kind of exercise in futility. Mallory, let the audience know who you are.
Hello, I think I'm back. Mallory Lee, nice to see you guys. I've been a RevOps leader a few times now. Excited to talk to you all today.
Awesome. So this is a great panel. It'll get slightly better whenever Adam gets back in.
Is it working now?
There you go.
You're there.
So it's the microphone. We'll throw the microphone away. I heard what Dale said. He does not help me with my tech problems. He actually just does my scheduling for me and books the occasional massage for me. I'm Adam J., the CEO and co-founder of Revenue Reimagined, and I'm Dale's boss sometimes. No, I'm kidding. Dale's actually my boss, if we're going to be really honest with one another here.
All right. So it's obviously going to be a lively discussion. Are you going to put up the first talk? Well, she does that. So the first one, like I said, VP of RevOps is the right hand of the CRO. So this is under the idea, should RevOps directly report into the CEO relative to priorities and organizational structure. And while we wait to get the quote up, why don't we talk about what exactly we're talking about whenever we say report to, because there's obviously more to that than just simply, hey, this person is the one that can be hired or fired by that person. Like, what are we talking about organizationally whenever we do that? Let's see. Mallory, you want to drop that in?
Sure. Yeah. So
doesn't sound like I was clear on what I was asking. But yeah, I think philosophically, good.
Are we talking about the quote where the VP of RevOps is the right hand of the CRO?
I was waiting for that to come up. So now that we've got that one up, let's go ahead and go into that one.
Got it. I think that the VP of RevOps, or whatever level title you have, should be the right hand of everybody on the executive team. That's kind of how I feel about it. Whether it's the CEO, the CRO, the CFO, I do think that the right person to help all of the executive team out is that operations leader. And for that reason, I do think that it makes a lot of sense for them to report to the CEO and be a peer to the rest of that leadership layer. I've had the opportunity to be in that structure once in my career, and I thought that that was a really nice structure for our executive team.
Yeah, you actually got to what I was asking in the other one as well. But Molly, let's hear what you've got on that one.
Yeah, I'll plus one what Mallory said in regards to the right hand. When I think about, revenue operations teams and how, even the functional members of the team from sales ops, marketing ops, et cetera, right? They should be the business partners. They should be the right hands to their stakeholders. It shouldn't just be limited to the CRO. It should be across all of the executive team there. In terms of reporting structures, I have reported to CROs, EOs, COOs, CFOs in my time as a RevOps leader. And I do think that there is definite value in having RevOps report into the CEO, but I think it really is going to be dependent on the organization and really what are the goals that they're trying to achieve as a business and what makes the most sense too. So, well, the CEO feels like sometimes the best place, it's not always the optimal place, depending on where the business is. For example, reporting into a CFO has been one of my favorite places to report, especially as the business is really doubling down on, financial performance and company goals and like aligning that strategy. So I think I'm going to say the thing everyone hates, that it depends, but I think there's really a time and purpose for where you should report based on what the business needs.
Adam, you've been a CEO quite a few times. What's your take on it?
I've been a CRO, first time CEO. Dale let me steal the title. But I agree. I think Mallory said it best, that RevOps support all executives and should have very strong partnerships with all executives in the business. I think at the end of the day, what's really important is that RevOps does have a seat at the leadership table, the executive leadership table, and isn't getting different direction from, a VP of sales, a VP of marketing, a CRO, a CMO. If they're actually part of the C-level conversations, they're going to be able to be better business partners and help foster the collaboration that's needed to make sure that everyone's on the same page, looking at the same metrics, driving the business in the same way.
Yep. Dale, let's hear yours.
My perspective is I don't think we've had a good definition of RevOps. And so if we're really talking about revenue operations, my feeling that it does report up into the CRO, because the CRO is supposed to go over marketing, sales, customer success. And the CRO actually needs to be the one that is helping drive that definition back into the executive team. Doesn't mean that there's not a seat at the table for the VP of RevOps. Just means that I think we're not defining revenue operations properly. And I also think many CROs actually are just ex-VPs of sales versus being proper CROs that go across the revenue stream. So my perspective on it is like we need to make sure that we're driving the right definitions so that we can all align on where they roll up to.
Yeah, it reminds me of the debate we had last year around the GTM title. Really at that point, and a lot of it kind of turned on semantics of who do we put this responsibility in, and that CROs arguably have not turned out to take the role oftentimes when we talked about or when we had envisioned whenever we started implementing CRO, and so it seems to be an ongoing debate around what do we actually mean by these different titles and what are they doing. All right, so hot take 2. It's not about the org, it's about the collaboration. So this would be, is the corporate culture around supporting a RevOps leader, is that organization in place around it? Is that the person that needs to drive it and charge it? What does that culture look like and how does it impact it? Molly, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on these. So.
Yeah, I think it starts usually with the collaboration, as you're thinking about moving from, decentralized to centralized operations from a RevOps structure. But at the end of the day, the way decisions get made, how you plan, how you prioritize, like that is org structure, and having that rigor behind it is necessary to be able to build the right type of environment to execute. So I agree, like it's got to start with like collaboration and buy-in and starting working towards the common goal, but you have to ultimately shift the org to be able to support that in order to execute properly.
Great. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, the collaboration is a must, right? While I do think to have proper collaboration, you have to have the proper reporting structure. But at the end of the day, when you get a solid RevOps leader and solid other members of leadership who can collaborate together, put those egos and those titles aside, they'll start to understand and start to see the business move forward.
Yep. Valerie?
So I kind of agree. I think I mostly agree, but
There we go.
I've been in like each of these scenarios, and let's say you report to the CFO. You can still collaborate with the entire team. You can still serve the same role across the board. At the end of the day, the people really drive the way that you have your culture and your decisions and your planning, etc. But with that said, I think the one that we might need to look at the definition of is really the CRO, because if our VP of RevOps is not in a position to support sales and marketing and customer success and maybe even product, but they're under the CRO, then who has the wrong definition? I think it's the CRO, because that CRO doesn't own all of revenue if they're just handling the sales org. So I think that you can get into situations where who you report to could matter, especially when it comes to budget and the way you want to calculate your cost of sales, cost of acquisition, how the goals are set for the business. I agree that who you work with is more important than who you report to. But the definitions, as long as you can try to get those lined up for people so that they can take their career where they want to take it, they can be in the conversations they need to be in. That's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about the GTM role. At the end of the day, we've got to have somebody in the organization that has that kind of global view of things and is trying to optimize across those. And if you don't, who that is, it depends a lot on different organizations and just who's where. But the important part is that they're working with and reporting into that one. Dale, hopefully I didn't steal your thunder.
No, all good. I do think it starts at the CEO level from an org perspective. So to me, the reporting structures, like we're getting into like where do they report? And if the CEO just opens up communication collaboration, kind of like what the statement's saying, then you should be okay. The challenge is if we get super siloed. I think I saw a mention in the chat, like reporting up to the CFO. It's not only about the financial pieces, but it's like how do all of those data points go across the life cycle of go to market? So Molly's exactly right. Like we have to define a CRO that owns from the customer journey from marketing to CS, and even have some influence into the product so that they can have conversations on what's working, what's not working within the product. But that definition doesn't really matter if the CEO doesn't enable the collaboration amongst the executive team.
Yeah, absolutely. Having gone from demand gen marketing roles, for most of my career into a COO role, there's actually a really, really easy movement with it, because across those different jobs and responsibilities, I was that person kind of in the middle looking at all of it. But it really speaks to what that you need to have that person internally at the organization, and they're going to be at different roles, different titles, and stuff like that. All right, last one. And a lot of you guys have touched on this, but I think we can have some interesting answers on it. Should RevOps be Switzerland? And whenever you guys go, begin by your interpretation of what that means. Because that could obviously mean several things within it. And so, let us know what you're thinking on that side of things, where, whenever you talk about, it being Switzerland in the sense of, if you guys aren't thinking about being neutral in the middle like they have in wars. But what does neutrality mean within these organizations? Molly.
I always get to go first. No, that's
It's because
good.
I'm excited to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah, I actually so I think that when I interpret this, right, I think neutral, right, there's seeing both sides to things, or, having a holistic view and being able to look at everything from the perspective of the 360 around it, right? So I think that, yes, RevOps 100% should be able to look and diagnose and understand, full circle, holistically understanding the business. Regarding the neutrality of, like, should RevOps have an opinion or not, as kind of the second piece of this, wholeheartedly, like, RevOps should have that seat at the table, should have the opinion. They shouldn't just be coming and saying, hey, Adam, here's A and B, make a decision. As the CRO, they again, back to being the right hand, back to being that person. They should come with a perspective. They should have conviction in what they're recommending and be able to support that based on the research, the data, the insights, the perspective, their experience that they bring to the table. And, like, that's what you want, right? One of my first RevOps jobs, the CEO pulled me in a room my second week and was like, tell me what you see, right? We are the best positioned people in an organization to see the things that others don't, because we have that, holistic lens, but a little bit of, like, that outsider perspective to it as well. And, like, I don't want Switzerland. I want Switzerland when we're bringing everything to the table and setting the stage, but I want, RevOps leaders, and everyone should want a RevOps leader who has a strong conviction, strong opinion, and recommendation on how to move the business forward.
100%. Dale?
Yeah, I actually don't think they should be Switzerland at all. I think they should come in with a hot take. I think they should, like, know what their numbers are. I think they need to have some conviction, because the challenge is most people don't even understand what the numbers are, like, what the revenue numbers are meaning. What's RevOps doing? Like, a lot of people are talking about RevOps from what kind of products are you using, or go configure Salesforce. Like, we're getting stuck into the wrong place on RevOps. Like finance, if you're reporting up into the CFO, it's all about top-down modeling. Okay, you have to do 10 million next year, and, like, we're going to divide that quota up, et cetera, et cetera. Where RevOps can come in is kind of from the bottom up modeling and say, no, you need these many leads, you need this much, need this much resource. Like, it's all about resource planning and making sure the company is aligned to the goals that we need to achieve, and coming both from a bottoms up perspective and a top down, but have some real conviction around it, because you're going to get marketing leaders and sales leaders and CS leaders all having their perspective in the CFO. Like, they're all probably really alpha personalities that are in that room. And so if you become Switzerland, like, you're just blowing with the breeze, whoever's making that conversation. So I think you have to come in with data, because these guys should be all data-based. They should be all, like, driven by the information, and they should come in hot like that. No Switzerland for me.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think
Switzerland.
Sorry, can I jump in? I
Yes,
don't
please.
think Switzerland means that you're quiet. And I don't think it means that you don't have an opinion. I think Switzerland means that you are not beholden to the opinion of any of those functional leaders. Like, if I am in the middle and objective, and I report to the CEO, and I don't give a shit what the CRO thinks because he's not my boss, that's when I can be the most opinionated, and I can share what I really think should be happening. And that's what Molly's talking about when they say, tell me what you see. And it's like, well, I see this from our CEO. I see this from our CRO. I see this from our CS person. Like, you have to be able to see the whole business. And that is hard when the CRO is your boss. So I have had a lot of positive experiences reporting to the CEO. When it's time to go do planning, the CFO brings a number, the CRO brings a number. Do you think they're ever the same? No. The RevOps person comes in and helps with planning to get to the number that's correct in the middle. And so I think being the tiebreaker in some of these situations, or being the Switzerland who can help people get to a compromise, a decision, is definitely an advantage of being an unbiased RevOps person. And sadly, you know, even if your CRO is like the best person in the world and you love them, that doesn't mean that reporting to them is the best way for you to be holistically supporting the entire business from an unbiased point of view.
Yeah, it's interesting how, depending on where you look at, where they're reporting within it, and this type of neutrality, if RevOps is going to have that big of a role in helping to organize how it's operating, you almost have to have them report into the CEO, because otherwise there's a voice at the table and with relatively equal footing and responsibility, and that makes it really hard to go and implement things across the entire organization, different roles. And so it's a different kind of aspect of reporting directly to the CEO as the person that has the authority to go and implement this across, as opposed to it just simply being a alignment between two roles. All right, Adam, I know you've got.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland, absolutely the F not. I want my RevOps leader to have the strongest opinion of arguably anyone on my team. They are the expert in the data. They are the expert of everything, should be the expert at everything from ICP down, what we're modeling, how we're modeling, what we should be looking at, who we're targeting, because they are that cross-functional liaison between everyone. So what I want is a RevOps leader who, to Molly's point, listen, if you're bringing in a tool, yes, don't come in and say it must be this tool because I say so. Like, absolutely be Switzerland in that sense. But when it comes to what should we be looking at, how should we be looking at, what should we be targeting, I want them to come in with a very strong opinion that if we want to grow the business and grow it in the right way, this is what we need to do, how we need to do, and what we need to report on.
Amen. So, this really feeds back into what we began with, or one of the earlier ones, around the culture piece of it. Because if you don't have that, if you don't have alignment between the different departments, the different metrics and different goals, and you don't have an operational mindset, then you wind up with a lot of turf battles, at least in my experience. And it's an underappreciated piece of this role. How do you play the politics within that? How do you manage the different interactions, the things that you're recommending within it, and how do you get alignment? We talk a lot of times about things like a North Star metric. North Star metrics are really hard if they're done properly. So North Star metric is going to be something that is a single metric, and the key to it is it's forward looking. So something like revenue is a terrible North Star because it's backwards looking. Revenue goes up, revenue goes down. Now you got to go and try and figure out and take your best guess on what drove that, as opposed to a forward-looking metric that's going to give you an idea of what's coming down the road. And then the other key piece to it is there's got to be a metric that's across the entire org. So you have to have marketing aligned with sales, aligned with retention, customer success. That's hard. And obviously, a lot of the times, the primary metric that each department looks at is not going to align with that of another. And so that was the hardest piece of it whenever I tried to do a North Star metric within that. What have you guys seen in terms of alignment, getting alignment across these different leaders? Oftentimes with big egos, with a lot of ideas and stuff like that. What have you seen? What's worked and what challenges have you had around that? Dale, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think it starts even before you have any meetings or conversations, just like you would in any other organization. You got to go behind the scenes. You got to meet with them one-on-one, meet with the marketing leader, meet with the sales leader, meet with the CEO, and find out where everybody is where their stance is. And then you build a plan around what the ultimate goal of the organization is. Like, the challenge with a lot of go-to-market is like the goals aren't aligned from marketing to sales to CS to product, or even the CEO and CFO. Like, everyone's got all these different goals. So if we align to the goals and we enable RevOps to actually like help do the connective tissue across the go-to-market piece. So to do that, I would just like work individually with each of the leaders and make sure that we have an understanding. And if there's something off, like that needs to go to the CEO, like, or that needs to go to the CRO. Like, hey, marketing is only thinking about number of leads. They're not thinking about qualified leads that can lead to bookings and to meetings. And that's not going to drive our revenue numbers, like if they're just driving leads.
Yeah, it's definitely have to be a bottom-up and a top-down approach. So you've got to have, relative to the other departments working directly with them, you have to do the what's in it for me. How's this going to help me? But you have to also make sure that what's in it is aligned to what the CEO needs to be interested in and prioritizing. Mallory, what have you struggled with and what's worked trying to navigate this?
Yeah, I think there are always going to be competing priorities, and sometimes you feel like it's your entire executive team against your board. Like there's always, a bad guy. It could be anybody. But I think what makes a good VP of revenue operations unique is that they can speak anybody's language. And my friend Justin told me this, and I was like, wow, you're right. You have to be able to speak the marketing language. You have to tell them in their own words, what do we need you to do? What are the goals? How is this going to help you? And that's, part of that socializing process before the meeting. Getting everybody on the same page by getting an idea in front of them and then helping them understand in their own words what it means for their department and their function. We employ marketing leaders to worry about marketing. That is their absolute focus. Sales leaders to worry about sales. We don't want them to all worry about each other's things. We need them to specialize in the department that they run. But that's why RevOps has to be like truly just not biased by any of that. They have to be able to speak the language of every single department to knit them all together. And I think that's why they're best in a centralized spot.
Yep. Molly, definitely interesting things that you're going to have on this one.
Yeah. Second, what both Dale and Mallory said, right? It's goals over roles. You've got to make sure you've got that alignment. The other really big thing is, as part of being a revenue operations leader, a lot of this is like influencing without authority, right? So being able to work with these stakeholders to really, and this is, I laugh because I have a consulting background. It's like, how do you make them think it's their idea? And so being able to navigate, what's best for the business, how you drive that alignment cross-functionally and get them out of their, like, this is what's important only for marketing, to saying like, this is what's really important for go-to-market, and bringing them along. But again, getting them to drive it as their own gives them the ownership and empowerment to deliver against it, versus it being the top down of like, Molly said, I have to go do this and this is what I've got to do. So being able to do the right influencing, the things that's worked really well for me is like that weekly business review with that C-suite of coming together, looking at the KPIs, knowing that we've got to prioritize, and like, we're going to have to horse trade a bit, right? Resource capacity, budgets, we've got to drive that alignment. And like, marketing's got to be okay to say like, I might have to give up some budget here to go over to CS because that's what's best for the business. But bringing them all to the table to make those decisions together and be bought in on the decisions they made tends to get a better outcome than the hammer coming down and saying like, this is the decision we're making, and I'm playing, I'm going to say the CEO trump card on that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned the North Star metric, because if you can get to that, it automatically drives alignment across that. So everybody's trying to influence, at the end of the day, that one number. They're going to have different opinions on what's going to influence it best, but at least you're all shooting for the same metric and the same goal within that. And so that can go a really long way towards driving this type of alignment. All right, guys, this has been great. We're coming up on the end of the time. Again, brought to you by Seamless.ai. Thanks for joining us, and thanks there we go. Praga is going to put up who has the hottest take.
I'm the only choice in the poll.
This feels rigged.
Oh, that's
Thank
funny.
you, Praga. Thanks for trying.
Mallory needs a win today.
All right. Well, we will. There. Praga, do you want to just let me know the numbers?
Absolutely. So I think I don't even know if my numbers matter anymore. because apparently the audience loves Mallory, and she has really beat everybody black and blue here. But according to
Wow.
my
Nice.
numbers, yes, I got Mallory at I got Molly at 19, number one. I got Mallory at 18, Dale at 17, and Adam at 11. But I really want to say that Adam did not get a last take in the end, so maybe that's what made my numbers like that.
All
Over to
good.
you, Jason.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll be back next month and with our newest hot take.